There's other situations that it been dice games. Like Tony Yayo was at a dice game. He was rolling dice with somebody. Shit went left. He got smacked. Guns came out. It was a Wild Wild West situation, you know?
So tell me about the dice game situation that went bad for you.
Oh, like we was in the barbershop. I'm rolling dice with a couple of I knew in the barbershop. And my man, me and him, sometimes when you roll dice and you hit a big number, you get excited. So we do the dance, we jumping around. And when you taking the money and you doing this and you dancing, that shit had tight. They was tight. So we doing a dance, felt the way, we take all your rent money, and he wanted to walk. Usually, like, when somebody asks for a walk, that's kind of like a sign of weakness. That walk you might want to try to, like, rob me or something. Like, I give you a walk. What I'm giving you a walk for? Are you going to give me a walk? Say
hold on. What does a walk mean?
A walk is like if I take $1,000 from you, I might give you back $300.
Okay.
But a lot of times, it's like, nah, fuck your walk. You want to keep all your money. It's gambling.
Right, it's your money. You just want it.
Yeah, so I didn't give him a walk. We had words, you know, guns was drawn, boom, boom, boom. That easy.
Okay, and what ultimately happened? Can you say or no?
Oh, it wasn't nothing. It was just a friendly shootout. It wasn't nothing serious. It was like
a friendly shootout.
Yeah, it was just me and him. Sometimes when you roll dice and you hit a big number, you get excited. So we do the dance, we jumping around. And when you taking the motherfuckers' money and you doing this and you dancing, that shit had motherfuckers tight. They was tight. So they doing the dance, we doing the dance, motherfuckers felt the way, we take all your rent money, right? And I knew the nigga, we was cool, but I took all his rent money. You know, he had a little size of me, no homo, and like, I took his rent money and he wanted to walk. Usually, like, when somebody asks for a walk, that's kind of like a sign of weakness. Like, yo, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? That walk you might want to try to, like, rob me or something. Like, I give you a walk. What I'm giving you a walk for? Are you going to give me a walk? So, like, say
hold on. What does a walk mean?
A walk is like if I take $1,000 from you.
Yeah.
Right? I give you, can I get a walk? I might give you back $300.
Okay.
But a lot of times, motherfuckers like, nah, fuck your walk. You want to keep all your money. Yo, ASAP Top. Yo, Top. I know Harlem in the building and we stay gambling, Queens in the building, but I told this they don't gamble to me. Give me all your money.
That was not right.
Damn.
I told you. Yo, what happened, man?
I don't know. We was playing dice. He took my car, took my girl, took everything, bro.
Oh! Come to Jersey, Hot Out Studios, free money. ASAP Ty told us, man.
You ruined it. Look what the you done. You humiliated us. Look at you.
One of the most known names from South Jamaica, Queens, is back in the conversation after somebody went on camera and claimed Tony got hit during a dice game, and not just hit either. According to that story, weapons allegedly came out and the whole scene turned into a wild, tense moment right in New York City. And the craziest part is who said it. This was not some random dude chasing clout online. The man speaking says he grew up around Tony, knows him personally, and was close enough to speak like he really understands that world. That makes the story feel way heavier because when the person talking has history with you, people listen different. But before we get deep into the dice game drama, we gotta break down who Tony really is, where he came from, and why this allegation hits harder once you understand the streets that shaped him. A lot of people know the name Tony, but not everybody knows the full backstory. And trust me, the road he came from was already wild enough before this dice game claim even entered the picture. This is the type of story that makes the room go quiet. So Tony, real name Marvin Bernard, was born on March 31st, 1978 in South Jamaica, Queens, New York City. And when I say South Jamaica, Queens, people need to really understand what that meant back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. That area was not built for soft living, not even a little bit. We're talking about one of the roughest pockets in New York, where the block could shape you fast, even if your home life was solid. Money problems were everywhere, the street economy was right outside the door, and danger was something people had to move around daily. Tony grew up right in the middle of that pressure, watching how fast things could switch when the wrong people got involved in real life. Now, Tony's parents were Haitian immigrants, hard-working people who came to America chasing something better. His mother worked as a nurse's aide and later became a registered nurse, really putting in the grind to hold the family together. Tony has spoken about having a good upbringing at home. His mother was strong, his father was around early, but the block does not care how good things look behind closed doors. And here's one part that really sticks out. Tony spoke about this in an interview years ago, and he said his father used to always warn him, "Stay off the boulevard." That line stayed in his head for years, but the crazy part is Tony laughed about it, saying that warning only made him want to go to the boulevard even more. And check how wild this gets. The same boulevard his father told him to stay away from is the exact same boulevard where Tony ended up getting arrested later in life. That is the kind of detail that makes the whole story feel almost scripted. His father saw the danger early, tried to steer him away from it, and somehow that same path still pulled him in. By the time Tony became a teenager in the mid-1990s, South Jamaica had a serious grip on him. At just 15 years old, Marvin Bernard dropped out of school in the 10th grade. 15 years old, already outside, already moving in street life, trying to help bring money home. A year later, his parents split up and his father was no longer in the home. So now you have a 16-year-old kid trying to figure life out with the block pulling him harder every day. That is a dangerous setup because once the streets start teaching lessons, they do not care how young you are. But this is also where something major started forming. On those same South Jamaica streets, young Marvin Bernard crossed paths with two kids who would change his life. One was known as Boo Boo, who the world would come to know as 50 Cent, and the other was Christopher Lloyd, who later became known as Lloyd Banks. And those three got tight fast. They were outside together, hustling together, and trying to survive in a neighborhood that could swallow people whole if they moved wrong. Tony has spoken about how 50 Cent was already a serious name in the hood back then. He said 50 had around 20 people working under him. That is not regular street talk. That is somebody moving different, even as a young man, and Tony was right beside him, watching, learning, and coming up in that same pressure cooker environment. Now this part matters because it connects straight to the story people are talking about today. Tony grew up around dice games. Gambling on the block was not some rare thing in South Jamaica. It was regular life. It happened on corners, inside barbershops, around parks, and anywhere people gathered with money and pride on the line. Tony has spoken about this more than once. He talked about seeing dice games turn bad, and he understood the whole culture around it. That is important because when you hear this new claim, it does not sound random. It connects to the world he came from. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Tony, 50 Cent, and Lloyd Banks had officially formed G-Unit. They were pushing hard on the mixtape scene, dropping street tapes and building their name block by block, borough by borough. Then 50 Cent did the impossible. In 2002, he signed a massive deal with Aftermath and Shady Records. Dr. Dre and Eminem stamped him, and suddenly G-Unit was not just local anymore. They were about to explode worldwide. This was supposed to be their big moment, and where was Tony? Locked up. On December 31st, 2002, New Year's Eve, Tony was arrested along with 50 Cent on weapons possession charges. That timing alone was already messy, but then it got even worse for Tony. During the background check, police found an outstanding warrant tied to a previous weapons charge. So now it was not just one new case sitting over his head. It turned into bail jumping on top of everything else. In early 2003, Tony was sentenced and he stayed locked up into 2004. That is heavy. Now really think about that timeline. In 2003, 50 Cent drops in Da Club and turns into a superstar overnight. Get Rich or Die Trying sells over 800,000 copies in the first 4 days. G-Unit drops Beg for Mercy, it goes platinum, and suddenly the whole crew is everywhere. They are selling out arenas, taking over radio, showing up on every TV screen, and Tony is watching the whole wave from inside. That is wild to picture right there. The moment he helped build was happening without him. But this is where you see what real loyalty looked like. 50 Cent did not leave his guy behind. He wore Free Tony t-shirts everywhere he went, and he kept Tony's name alive in interviews, on stages, and anywhere cameras were rolling. He made sure that even while Tony was locked up, the world knew he was not some side character. He was a real piece of G-Unit. That whole Free Tony push became one of the most natural rap marketing moves of the early 2000s. People who had never even heard a Tony song still knew the name because those shirts were everywhere. And honestly, are we shocked that people still talk about that loyalty? In the music business, that type of bond is rare. When Tony finally came home, the buzz was already waiting for him. He dropped his debut album, Thoughts of a Predicate Felon, in August 2005, and it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. That came from the G-Unit machine, the crew loyalty, and the streets never forgetting Tony. Even with all that success, the fame, the albums, the tours, and the whole G-Unit empire, the block never fully left Tony. That street mindset did not just disappear because the cameras showed up. Tony has said it himself. Being a rapper does not always bring peace because the lifestyle keeps pulling at you. The attention, the money, the women, the pressure, and the gambling all stay around. And that word gambling is where this story starts lining up in a serious way. Before we get into what Domination said on Cam Capone's show, and yes, we are getting to that, people need the full context on Tony and Dice Games first. This is not some random claim floating in from nowhere. There is history behind it. Back in January 2023, after Takeoff tragically lost his life following a Dice Game situation in Houston, Tony sat down and spoke about his own experiences with Dice Games going bad. That detail makes the allegations sound way more personal, and what he described was wild. Tony told a story about being at a dice game inside a New York City barbershop. Tony said he and his people were winning heavy, taking money off this guy, until the man had basically lost everything. And according to Tony, that included money the guy needed for rent. So when the game ended, the man asked for a walk. That right there is where the tension started rising. Now, for anybody who does not know, Tony explained that a walk is when somebody loses badly at dice and asks for a small piece of their money back, just so they do not walk away completely broke and embarrassed. The winner does not have to give it back, but sometimes they do it out of respect. Tony said he refused, and once he said no, the whole mood flipped fast. The situation allegedly turned into gunfire inside a New York City barbershop, and Tony was right there in the middle of it. He even described it as a friendly shootout, which sounds wild no matter how you say it. So now you see the pattern. Dice Games turning chaotic was not new territory for Tony. That world was already familiar to him. Today's story, the one Domination told, is a whole different situation, and it hits harder for one serious reason. Before we get into exactly what he said on Cam Capone's show, we gotta talk about who Domination really is, because the source changes everything here. Domination, real name Donald Coleman, is a rapper who used to move around G-Unit circles back in the day. He is mostly known for his connection and work with Bang Them Smurf, who was also a former G-Unit affiliate. So this is not some random person popping up from nowhere.
Now, at some point, you meet Tony Yayo? You know Tony Yayo since you were a kid?
I know Tony Yayo since I was a kid, yeah. He was signed to not signed, because they wasn't signed, but they was in an underground group called Rags to Riches. It was him, Fat Shy, AKA DJ Rough Hands, God bless the dead, and my man Katif, God bless the dead. They call him Huey P.
Claiming he saw something just to get attention online, this is somebody who was close to that world. He moved around those same people, knew the names, knew the streets, and understood the energy around that whole circle. That makes the story feel sharper, because when an insider speaks, people lean in different real fast. And what Domination told Cam Capone News on May 23rd, 2025 was explosive. But before he even got to the Dice Game claim, he said something first that set the whole mood. And this part needs attention. When the interview began and they started talking about how Domination and Tony know each other, Dom made it clear. He said he has known Tony since he was a kid and that they met on the block. That matters because these two are not strangers. They came from the same type of environment and crossed paths on those same New York streets we have been breaking down this whole time. But then the conversation took a sharp turn. The host started calling Tony Dom's big homie, like Tony was somebody he looked up to or someone higher in the street chain. Domination shut that down fast. He basically said he never looked up to Tony in his life and that there was not much to look up to. He described him as just an ordinary hustler on the block. That is a heavy statement. Think about what that means coming from somebody who saw Tony before the fame, before G-Unit became global, and before the platinum plaques came in. He is basically saying that on the block, Tony was not some untouchable figure. He was just another dude outside, nothing more, nothing less. And that sets up the next part perfectly, because if Domination already viewed Tony as a regular guy from the block, not somebody to fear.
Tony Yayo was at a dice game. He was rolling dice with somebody. Shit went left. He got smacked. Guns came out. It was a Wild Wild West situation, you know?
And not somebody sitting above everyone in that old street pecking order, then his dice game story lands very different. This is the moment people have been waiting for, because this is where the whole situation gets messy. About 13 minutes into his interview with Cam Capone News, Domination started speaking on a specific incident involving Tony at a dice game, and the way he told it, this was not some tiny misunderstanding. This sounded like a full street-level confrontation with pride, money, and reputation all sitting right in the middle. According to Domination, Tony was at a dice game, rolling with somebody, and at first, that sounds normal for the world we have been describing. Dice games were part of everyday culture in South Jamaica, Queens, corners, blocks, barbershops, wherever people gathered. That scene was nothing new, and everybody understood how fast respect could turn into pressure. But then Domination claims the energy changed, and when it changed, Tony got hit. He says Tony was struck during a dice game in New York City. Think about how wild that sounds. A man connected to G-Unit, one of the most powerful and respected rap crews of that era, allegedly got hit over a dice game in front of people outside watching. But hold up, because this is where Domination claimed the situation got even bigger. After Tony allegedly got hit, he said weapons came out. Domination described it like a Wild West scene, with multiple people allegedly reaching during a dice game dispute that went completely sideways. Just pause and let that sit for a second, because the meaning behind that story is heavy. This was not some long-running beef that had been building for months. This was not some planned meetup or staged confrontation. According to Domination, it was a dice game, the same kind of environment Tony has said he grew up around, and it allegedly spun out of control fast. That is the kind of moment where money, pride, and ego can turn a regular night into pure chaos. And the source is what makes people lean in. This was not just a random online comment. Domination said he knew that world came from the same block and was around those streets back then. Still, some people online are pushing back, saying he is reaching, chasing attention, or that the interview was fishing for extra drama. And that is a fair conversation to have, because not every story told in a hip-hop interview is automatically pure truth. People exaggerate, mix up details, or stretch old street stories for a little spotlight, and nobody should act like that never happens. But here is what makes Domination's claim different. He was not saying this happened to him, he said he was there and watched it go down. That matters because a witness story lands different from somebody repeating a rumor they heard later. And the way he described it had detail, from the dice game tension to weapons allegedly coming out, to him calling it a Wild West situation. That is not the same as some loose, blurry story with no shape. It had texture, and that is why people started paying attention. Plus, the wider reaction was not just everybody calling it fake from jump. A lot of hip-hop fans were more like, this tracks. This feels like the kind of thing people already heard about that era and those streets back in the day too. So now let's address the big question hanging over the room, because everybody is probably thinking the same thing right now. Has Tony said anything about this? Has he responded? Has he spoken on the story Domination put out there on Cam Capone's show? And this is where it gets real interesting, because as of now, Tony has not publicly addressed Domination's specific claims from that interview. No social media response, no interview clap back, no direct statement, nothing. Now that could mean a few different things, so let's break it down. Option 1, Tony may not feel like this is even worth his attention. In hip-hop, and especially with street reputation, responding to every story can make the situation bigger than it already is. Responding to Domination gives the claim more life. It tells the internet, this bothered me enough to answer. Sometimes silence is the smarter move. Option 2, and this is what a lot of people are wondering, maybe Tony's silence is not because the story is false, and that possibility makes the whole room feel tense. Maybe answering would force Tony to go on record about a time and a place he may want to leave exactly where it belongs in the past. Because here's the thing, Tony has already spoken openly about the chaos around those streets. He has talked about gunfire at dice games, and we just covered the barbershop story he told himself. He never tried to sell some peaceful, polished version of South Jamaica, Queens. Tony has been clear about how rough that environment could get and how fast regular moments could turn dangerous in real time. So if something like what Domination described really did happen, a dice game turning sideways, tempers jumping, people reaching, it would not sound out of place in the world Tony came from. What it would be is embarrassing, and not just in a small way, because the image 50 Cent built and the image G-Unit pushed was all strength, toughness, and consequences. The brand was built on not being the type of crew people could test without paying for it. We are not the ones, that was the message G-Unit pushed. So if a story is floating around that one member allegedly got hit at a dice game, even before fame when they were kids from the block, that is the kind of claim that can chip away at an image fast. Even if people do not think it changes Tony today, the story still exists. And it has been said on camera, on a platform where millions can hear it and run with it. That makes this bigger than some old block story coming back up. What also matters is that Tony has been open in interviews about how complicated the street image can be. He has talked about rappers always performing a version of themselves and how the lifestyle comes with nonstop pressure to protect an image. Tony said, you never really have peace because you are always watching your back and managing how people see you. So maybe Domination's story hits harder not just because of the alleged incident, but because of what it represents. Someone from Tony's world, someone who knew him before fame, is now saying on camera that back then he was not feared and he was not commanding like people might think. He was just a regular dude from the block. That is the real story sitting underneath the bigger story. So let's zoom out for a second, because this is not only about somebody allegedly getting hit at a dice game. This is about something much bigger. It is about the gap between image and reality, and in hip-hop, that gap gets ignored way too often. Tony built his career beside 50 Cent and Lloyd Banks on the idea of being authentic. G-Unit's whole appeal was that these were real guys from real streets, with real lives before the music took off. 50 Cent survived being shot 9 times, got dropped by Columbia Records, then found his way back after Eminem heard a demo. He fought his way to the top when everything looked stacked against him. That realness powered the whole movement, and Tony was part of that story. The Free Tony campaign worked not just because 50 pushed it everywhere, but because fans believed Tony was a real one doing real time while his crew blew up without him. That narrative carried weight, but the streets, the actual streets, not the cleaned up rap version, are messy, complicated, and never as simple as the image people sell to the world every day. The block does not care about your image. It does not care about platinum plaques, sneaker deals, or how famous your name got. On the street, what matters is what happens in real time, right in front of people who actually know you. And that is why Domination's story, whether people believe it or not, reminds everybody that the block keeps its own memory. It has its own receipts. Domination said he met Tony on the block and knew him as a kid. The way he spoke about Tony sounded like somebody talking about a person he grew up around, not somebody he ever placed on a throne. To him, Tony was just a regular hustler outside. Not a king, not some untouchable figure, just another dude moving through the same pressure everybody else was dealing with. And let's be clear, calling somebody ordinary in that world is not automatically disrespect. Most people growing up around South Jamaica, Queens, in the 1980s and 1990s were just trying to make it through day by day. Being ordinary, there simply meant being human. That means Tony was not superhuman. It means he was a person like anybody else. The problem starts when the image being sold to the public looks way bigger than the real person behind it. That is why stories like Domination's hit so hard, not because being ordinary is shameful, but because the gap between regular life and rap image creates the kind of drama the internet loves to chew up. And this is something every rapper from a street background has to deal with. There is always pressure between who you were, who you are now, and who your brand says you are. That pressure never really disappears. Somebody will always remember the old version of you, the block version, the before the fame version. And in this YouTube interview era, those memories do not stay buried for long. With platforms like Cam Capone News and all these shows built around pulling old stories out of people, the chances of secrets staying quiet are basically gone. That is the world Tony is moving through right now, and that is the same world Domination just dropped this claim into. But let's be fair, because this should not be only about dragging Tony. The full picture matters. As of now, Tony is still active and still part of the culture. He co-hosts The Real Report with Uncle Murda, and that platform has been doing strong numbers too. On The Real Report, Tony has been open, honest, and entertaining, speaking on the industry, breaking down current hip-hop drama, and giving his view as somebody who has been inside the game for more than 2 decades. That kind of perspective still carries weight with the culture right now. Earlier this month, he even announced that the G-Unit Reebok sneakers are coming back. He said on The Real Report, "We got some big news. The G-Unit sneakers are coming back." So clearly, there is still money, motion, and nostalgia moving around the G-Unit brand. And that is what makes Tony's legacy interesting. Despite all the talk over the years, the Lloyd Banks and 50 Cent comparisons, the legal issues, the controversy, and the jokes, Tony is still here. Still relevant, still enough of a name that one Cam Capone news story can make the internet start talking crazy. And clearly, Domination knew Tony's name could create a moment in that interview. That says something. Love him or hate him, Tony still moves the needle. But my honest read is this: Domination's Dice Game story is now out there and people are watching it closely. The story has already been picked up across hip-hop media, spread all over YouTube, and now it is moving through the culture fast. The big question is still open. Will Tony respond? And if he does decide to address Domination directly, that becomes a whole new conversation, because the response matters just as much as the claim itself. The way somebody handles being put on blast tells you a lot. Tony could deny it, which would be the simple move. He could say it never happened, and maybe that is true, maybe it is not. Or he could take the more interesting route and own the environment he came from. He could say, "Yeah, dice games go sideways. I've been in situations. This is the life." That kind of honest, no-flinching response might actually hit harder than any denial, because people can feel when somebody is standing on reality instead of ducking the messy parts. Because if Tony's career has shown anything, it is that uncomfortable truth usually connects stronger than a polished image built for the cameras, and that is the full picture here. From Marvin Bernard leaving school at 15 in South Jamaica, Queens, to running with 50 Cent and Lloyd Banks, to helping build G-Unit from the ground up, to being locked up while his crew went platinum, Tony became a real part of hip-hop history. And now, decades later, a former associate goes on camera with a dice game story, and suddenly Tony's name is trending through hip-hop spaces all over again. That is Tony's life in 2025, still active, still debated, and still never boring. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Tony responds to this, or does he stay quiet and let the story fade? Do you think Domination is telling the truth, or is this just somebody trying to grab attention off a bigger name? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this one is messy and people are split. And if you learned something new today, or this gave you a different look at the G-Unit story before the fame, hit that like button, subscribe to Dripzine, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next drop. Also, hype this video. It does not cost nothing, but it helps the channel keep moving. More hip-hop deep dives, more behind-the-scenes stories, and more block before the fame breakdowns are coming. Dripzine is not slowing down. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.